Welcome back to the channel. We're going to do something a little bit different today. As I'm sure those of you regular visitors and regular viewers of my channel have come on and seen endless car videos. And right now that has dominated the bulk of my hobby time, as I am living pretty far away from where I originally came from and where most of the musicians that I dealt with were originally as well. So I haven't, for the last several years, been doing a whole lot of playing. In other words, the bass in the Bass and Hot Rods title of my channel. But what I'm going to go over today is I'm going to go over a little bit of that history, show you some of the stuff that I've got, and some plans in the future for that as well. So stick around. I think you'll enjoy it. Being a musician, I am, of course, afflicted with what we call GAS, G-A-S, or Gear Acquisition Syndrome. This right here is an amplifier that I have played through for about 25 years. This is a Gallien-Krueger 700 RB, which is a 385 watt biampable head going into a 210 cabinet in a combo form and a 210 with horn attached to it. Total output's about 450. This particular rig has played gigs as small as crowds of 40 to 50 up to the Beale Street Merchants Association gigs we headlined back in the mid-2000s in front of 80 and 90,000 people. Of course, you have PA support and things like that. But that shows you the diversity, or not diversity rather, but the versatility of this particular amplifier, and that's why I've hung on to it all these years. I've considered looking into scoring one of the new Class D amplifiers, which produce tons of power and weigh a fraction of what these do, but to be honest with you, I haven't been playing enough lately to warrant such an expenditure, so that's why I'm kind of sticking with this. You can see this stack of gear over here. This is my storage room. We're about to go. I've got guitars, a little PA system, some other things as well, vocoder, things like that. But this is the main rig that I've been playing through. Now, I've also been playing through a number of pedals over the years. I usually use those in bass guitar terms as event type pedals as opposed to something standard the way guitar players do. Kick on the distortion for a lot of their stuff. They'll use chorus in a lot of their stuff, whereas with me, it's an envelope filter for a certain event in a song, a whammy pedal for a certain little hit in a song, little bits and pieces there and there, whereas my primary tone is primarily the bass through the amp. So let me show you some of the basses that I've got. This right here is probably the oldest original bass that I have. Now this is a heavily modified Yamaha BB1100S. They were made in the mid-80s, around 1985, 86. This is a 1986 model. And this is one of the first real legitimate bass guitars I owned. Of course, prior to this one, I had the standard introductory basses, you know, the Quartz, the Lotus brand, off-brand P basses, and things like that. This is actually the first bass that I owned that I did a tremendous amount of gigs on. I played this bass as my primary instrument from about 1991 up until, honestly, the end of the 1990s into 2000. Of course, I branched off into some other things, which you're going to see. I'm going to show some pictures of some of the past basses I've owned that I played a lot. I had a 1978 Precision bass that I wish I still had, honestly, because they've come up in value quite a bit. Played one of those quite a bit. I played a lot of boutique basses in the past. I had a Padula Thunder bass that Mike Padula custom made for me after I went to the 1995 NAMM show. I played that for a number of years. I had a number of Spectres in the past, and I'm still a fan of the Spectres. I'm in the middle of possibly acquiring another one for a couple of reasons that I'll get into on another video. But this Yamaha right here has been a mainstay of mine for almost over 30 years at this point. It was originally a tobacco sunburst, but of course wear and tear and everything beat it up. Being on the road all the time, the finish was totally done, so I kind of refinished it myself. Kind of got on a crazy whelm and refinished it the same color as one of my cars, the Yellow Blaze Mustang that I've got on previous videos. This has also been highly modified, that it's got EMG pickups in it now and an EMG TBT module, which is a 3-band equalizer with a parametric mid-range and volume and tone controls. So this has been heavily modified, but it has been a mainstay of mine for many, many years. It's a pretty unique instrument in its own right. The reason I own this one is one of the first real basses that I own way back in 1986 was a new series from Yamaha called the Motion B series. Now this is not my original one. My original one was white, and I'll try to show a picture of a very young me playing that bass at a place called Whitewater Tavern in Little Rock, Arkansas. It's the first gig I ever played. This is an MB2, which is a little bit upscale from that one. This is one I found on a Guitar Center wall one day, hanging up at a ridiculously low price, and nostalgia made me pull the trigger on it. This one, unlike my original one, has fine tuners at the bridge and has a coil splitting thing here that gives some added tonal values. The interesting thing about this bass is it is a mid-scale. Most basses, as I'm sure you're aware, are 34-inch scale length. This one is actually a 32. The neck is very, very thin, but it's got a great tone. And it plays like a dream. It does take some getting used to for me because, as I noted, I normally play various standard scale basses, 34-inch scales. But I bought this one on a whim one day because it kind of harkened back to the first bass that I ever played with at a gig. I didn't have that one very long. I let it go when I actually bought that Yamaha BB1100S that I just showed you a moment ago. But I do like these. They're kind of quirky. As far as value, I don't know if they're very particularly valuable anymore, but it held a lot of sentimental value with me, and I wanted another one. So that's why I got this one. Full disclosure, this right here is technically not my bass. This actually belongs to my daughter. It's one that I got for her for a present some time ago. She wanted a bass guitar, so she could start learning to play. This is a bass that I'm very impressed with the quality of them considering the cost. This is a Sire V7, I think. But these were originally started marketing in partnership with Marcus Miller, who, if you're a bass player, you know exactly who Marcus Miller is, the king of tone, basically. But it's a variation of his original 1970s jazz bass. These are budget line basses that honestly cost about the same as the budget basses were when I started playing in the early 80s. But the quality is so far beyond those, it is unbelievable. These actually rival or even better a lot of mid-range Mexican and low-end American Fender basses that I've played, because the quality of the materials, the tightness of the neck pocket, the finish, the tuning machines, and more or less, and more than that, the electronics in it are as good, if not better, than a lot of Fenders I've played for twice the price. These have 3-band active EQ. You've got a passive mode as well. You've got twin volume knobs here. Just a lot of real good tonal variety on these. This is a blend to go between the pickups, as you can see here, because just a very rich and deep sound for a bass that honestly retails for less than $500 at the time that I bought this one. Playability in the neck is outstanding. The quality of the fretwork is excellent. You know, a lot of cheaper basses, you have trouble with the frets bleeding over the edge of it, causing a sharp edge. These don't have those problems. It actually has binding. So I'm very, very impressed with this series of basses from Sire. This does belong to my daughter. I've got it down here right now because she lives in a small apartment right now and she's going to school for her graduate degree. So I told her I would keep it here. Of course, she really had to talk me into that. Of course, it's a pleasure having it around. Finally, we come to this one. This one right here is a relatively new acquisition of mine. It has been the bass that I've been playing most of lately, but I haven't actually done any gigs on these, and I'll get to my story here in just a moment as to why I haven't done many gigs. But this is actually it's a Mexican Fender Jazz. The reason I bought this one is Fender, I recognize, is the most recognizable tone. If you don't hear a P bass, chances are you're hearing a jazz bass. Every bass player needs one of those in their arsenal. I am one of the few that is not a particular fan of Fender basses. I don't think they play as well as other instruments. I certainly don't like some of the aspects of the electronics, but they have a signature tone, and you kind of have to have one in your arsenal. I came from more of the P bass side. The first basses that I learned to play were of that type of variety, which, if you're familiar with them, they have a little bit wider neck. Totally different sound, different hand positioning, and things of that nature. I don't actually own a P bass right now. I let the last one I had go. I'm considering picking up another one, but to be honest with you, as I noted, I'm not a huge fan of the Fender basses, And I'm looking at acquiring another Spectre because I am a big fan of those basses. I've actually met Stuart Spectre on a couple of occasions, and he was at the Spectre Hang in Tulsa, Oklahoma several years ago. Got to meet him. He signed the bass that I had, and I'll show you a picture of that as well. But as far as this Fender goes, this one is a little bit doctored. It's kind of a custom bass. I know it's a Mexican bass, but it's kind of a custom bass. It has a standard made in Mexico tobacco sunburst body with the standard electronics, passive electronics, 2 volumes and a tone control, just your standard jazz bass. But the neck is a little bit different. This is one of their 60s roasted maple Vetera, I believe is what they call it, series necks. I like it a lot better than the standard Fender because, first of all, it's got the maple fingerboard, which I do prefer over rosewood. I like ebony better than rosewood or maple, but those are usually only on the boutique and higher end basses. But this one, the neck is very slick, very good feeling, plays great. This one's been professionally set up, and it really plays great. But in all honesty, I'm actually contemplating letting this one go because as much as everyone who plays bass guitar needs a Fender in their arsenal, I'm just not a big fan of them, and I'm looking at acquiring maybe a Euro Series LX Spectre or another Padula. Michael Padula stopped building basses some years ago, and the prices on them have really skyrocketed. So I don't really see myself buying a Padula. But the Spectre is definitely in my price range. That's something I'm looking at. Why am I looking at that? Well, just to give you a little bit of my background, I played semi-professionally or professionally from about 1987 is when I started first playing my first gigs. That picture that I showed you a moment ago of me playing the Yamaha Motion, that was when I was 17 years old, so that would have been around 84 or 85 when I played my first gig. But from about 1988 and on, I've been playing semi-professionally. 91, I joined a group that toured quite a bit, played a lot, and from about 1991 until around 2006, 2007, I averaged close to 100 shows a year, playing mostly that Yamaha BB1100 that you saw, or the 78P bass that was noted in the picture as well. Those basses did me well. About 95, I started playing the Padula that I showed you there, and I played that one all the way up until around 2006, 2007, when I let it go and went into semi-retirement. The reason I went into semi-retirement from playing bass is I started having problems with my elbows. It's similar to tennis elbow. It affects a different ligament, but it's in both elbows. It causes a lot of pain, and more importantly, it causes pain in a way that's difficult to get over. It takes months of rehabilitation, months of medication, and even the threat of possible surgery to get over it. I'm still having some difficulty in my right arm, but that slowed down my playing quite a bit. Plus, in 2013, I moved from Arkansas to my current location in Dallas, and everybody that I know that I play with is in Arkansas. There's a lot of great musicians up in Arkansas that I had a wonderful time performing with over the years. And when I came to Dallas in 2013, to be honest with you, I was getting older. I was not wanting to be gone every weekend playing in clubs all night. I wanted to spend time with my family. And as a result, I stopped playing professionally around that time. Now, I've done an occasional pickup gig since then, but since that time, I just haven't been playing much. So I sold off a lot of the more expensive boutique instruments to support my car hobby, which you have seen on this particular channel, and have had basses like this, which are good, but they're not the quality of those, but they're certainly good, and good enough to do what I'm doing now. The reason I'm considering selling these is for a couple of different reasons. I'm not a fan of Fender. I've actually become good friends thanks to social media with a gentleman named Brian Robbie, whose father, Stephen Robbie, used to own and created SWR bass amplification, which back in the 90s when I was working in music retail, in addition to my gig responsibilities, I was a big endorser of both Gallion Kruger, who I had a good relationship with, Bob Gallion, and Stephen Robbie at SWR. I actually was in a small-time endorser for SWR for a number of years. I loved their gear, loved Steve as a man. He was a great guy who really did me a lot of favors in getting me started as an up-and-coming bass guitarist. He sold the company in the early 2000s, or maybe it was before that, but eventually the company ended up in the hands of Fender. And what Fender did basically was take the proprietary technology they acquired, and then they destroyed that company and basically got rid of SWR as a name. I didn't really like that. Fender's done that to a number of companies, Gens-Benz among them as well, which are excellent bass stuff. And because of that and the actual instruments that they build, I'm just not a fan of Fender. I know that's shocking. Most bass players swear by Fender, and I certainly understand. They invented the bass guitar. The Jazz and the Fender P bass are the benchmark tones that you hear on 99% of albums recorded out there. It's either a Fender Jazz or a Fender P bass. But I'm just personally not a fan of them. And some things have happened where I'm actually going to be able to start playing a little bit again. My elbows being the concern is the reason I'm going back to the Spectre. Because as you can see on this is a Fender Jazz, and it's just like every other bass. You've got a little bit of contour here, but it's a flat body. The Spectres, if you're familiar with them, at least the NS series, they actually have a curved contour to them. And that curve in the smaller body actually works to relocate the right arm position that I have, and it gives my elbow some relief. It's actually physically is a more comfortable bass and doesn't hurt as much to play it at my age. So that's why I'm looking at getting back into a Spectre bass, and if I'm able to score the one that I'm looking at right now, in a couple of weeks I'll release an unboxing video and we'll show you the new guitar. But I wanted to give you this video today primarily because I've had a lot of people asking me what's the deal with the name of your channel. It's based on hot rods, as I'm sure you know, and they were wondering what the deal was with the bass when everything I've released is about hot rods. Well, I am a musician. I've been a musician for over 30 years. I've got well over 1,000 shows under my belt over the years, and have played with some of the best musicians I've known in a lot of different aspects in just about every genre of music you can imagine. It is a part of who I am, and I'm going to start incorporating more of the bass stuff in bass and hot rods. So I hope you sit with me and enjoy it. But in the meantime, be sure and hit that like and subscribe button. We will have some more bass stuff coming up in addition, of course, to the hot rod videos. I'm just taking the weekend off from the bass and hot rod from the hot rod side of the channel because it's 108 degrees outside right now in my unair conditioned shop. Plus, I just got back from Arkansas where I visited my daughter for Father's Day. And spent some time with family this weekend instead of working on cars. But we'll have some more stuff coming up, that as well, more hot rod videos, of course, and I will incorporate some more bass stuff as we go. Thanks for joining us. Catch me again.